Reducing Our Donald Footprint. Welcome to Law and Society. So, this episode is a little lighthearted, but it is about reducing the Donald footprint. From 2015 to 2025, the American zeitgeist has been laden with leaflets and digital imprints of Donald Trump. So I look at Donald Trump as sort of like pollution. I look at it like the climate crisis. And so how the climate crisis being the authoritarian regime and Donald Trump being the pollution that keeps on aggravating and exacerbating that authoritarian government machine that is destroying our democracy. So he is a pollutant. He is the biggest pollutant of our democracy. And so what would I do? Like, if you look at it from a climate crisis standpoint, what do? Well, we take action on grand scales like governments, and we push our governments to go green, to invest in renewable technology as opposed to non-renewables, to stop the pollution from getting in the air and in the water. We also, on a very personal level, take personal steps, like we segregate our waste for recycled and non-recycled, knowing full well that the recycling industry isn't all that effective in stopping plastic pollution. But we still do little things. Like me being a dirty smoker, I always, while I finish the cigarette, cut off the filter and then toss off the bud, because if I threw the filter onto a pavement and that filter went during a rainstorm into the drain system, and I'm not the only one smoking in the city, so if hundreds of thousands of millions of these things accumulate in drainage systems, they don't biodegrade. They actually clog up the drainage systems and therefore make the efficiency of running of the waterways a difficulty. So I stop that. So reducing the use of water. Very simple limitations on water. Instead of taking a 15-minute leisurely shower, you get to take a 10-minute less leisurely shower. So we have to reduce Donald Trump's footprint from our democracy by not just these large-scale protests and calling on our representatives and senators to push back and then but it comes down to doing what we can do, then coming to obviously voting GOP and Republicans out because they are now following Donald Trump's lead and it is now MAGA. What do? We reduce our consumption of Donald Trump. I'm not saying we reduce our consumption of Donald Trump news, but we reduce our proliferation of Donald Trump's face everywhere. We could talk about Donald Trump's misdoings without every single article about him putting a picture of him on there. It is a pollutant. It is a visual pollutant. So why not use the picture of somebody else or something else that is relevant to that article instead of Donald Trump? Maybe because Donald Trump has become this commodity in media where when you say Donald Trump or when somebody sees Donald Trump and somebody hears Donald Trump, that's the trifecta of getting people to listen to you. But the truth of the matter is, all you need to do is to be able to see to be able to hear and understand what Donald Trump is saying without the visual is not necessary. Me just giving you an example, And then there are people who are constantly immersed in Donald Trump's misdoings. And there's this hatred that boils up because of, it is frustrating and angering and infuriating. So the hatred causes us to post so many things about Donald Trump with Donald Trump's face on it, what he has said, and retweet and repost and repost and repost. Well, I get that we are getting the information, say from a clip of what he said on Truth Social, but cut out his name, cut out his face, cut it in half. Act as a small act of defiance. Use cartoons of him on your articles than actual pictures of him. Talk about him only when it is necessary about what he is doing. And that is kind of everything right now. And that's why it may be like, okay, so what exactly are we supposed to do? I'm saying to you is that what do you think you can do to reduce your Donald footprint? What I do is I don't post his picture. I don't repost his image or his messages on Truth Social. I repost the legal news. I repost the occurrences that are happening with the deportations, with the cuts, with the layoffs, with the cutting of regulations, with the several different violations of the Constitution that Donald Trump has initiated with his executive orders. I talk about those things. I share about those things. When Judge Luttig writes about something, and I'm pleasantly surprised that his article does not have Donald Trump's mugshot on it, I share it. But I don't share many news that otherwise I would have shared. I find another way to share that news, use another resource that does not have Donald Trump's mugshot. Is that a little bit of too much work for me? Maybe. But in my mind, to give myself the sanity and to not pollute myself with that image, that's my incremental contribution to reducing Donald Trump's footprint. So look at it as a pollutant. Look at Donald Trump as a climate crisis exacerbator. Look, which he is, by the way, because he is nixing and cutting all of the regulatory protections of the EPA, and he's withdrawn from the Paris Accords again, and he's going into indiscriminate drilling and opening up public lands. We haven't even gotten to 5 months of his second term and first reign yet. So we will get a lot of Donald Trump stories every day, all the time. And just like every day, all the time, the world is getting polluted. And every time we talk about pollution, it's oxymoronic in many ways, because when you have a Paris conference, everybody's taking planes to get to the conference. And therefore, what is the carbon footprint of that? When we have the resource of being able to digitally communicate and remotely communicate, right? There are alternatives that we have right now in our faces. Reduce the use of plastic as much as you can. Reduce the use of Donald Trump's tirades as much as you can. Paraphrase them. Reduce them. Be condescending on them. Don't just blatantly push it out. You have the permission to give your spin, because the First Amendment allows us the freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So we can make a caricature of this pollutant. We can neutralize the clout that it sort of envelops everything and consumes everything in society. So with that, I've gone on 10 minutes, and I think that's waste of time on Donald Trump. But do think about it. Think about Donald Trump as a greenhouse gas. Think of him as plastic pollution. And then find ways how you yourself can cut off Donald Trump visually. Auditorily, always keep your ears open to what he's saying. You know, read what he has said from reliable sources, even from videos where he is clipped. But you know, those clips can have thumbnails without his face on it. So his face is not being reposted and getting into our subconscious over and over and over and over and over again, so you can't get out of that spin that everything is somehow connected to Donald Trump. A lot of things are, but many more things are not. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I'll talk to you soon.